Yo, what's up, guys? Talking about league start 319. Talk about my league start. I've narrowed it down. I finally have decided the night before I will be going Lightning Strike Poison Assassin, and I'll explain why. First off, I've already played the Berserker version and I've already played the Raider version. I did a POB of a Slayer version, and while it did about the same amount of damage as the other two, it didn't really add much. It's just like a lot more gearing to reach the same amount of high-end damage that those other two got, and didn't come with like a lot of like the speed. Didn't come with like the easy defense. What you did get was like Overleech, and you got Cull, which is it's nice, but it's not the version I want to go with. And then I settled on the poison version after seeing this video by Immocodius. I believe this is his build. I think. I'm not 100% sure. You can head over to his channel. He has a bunch of videos on it. I did take liberties from his build or his version of the build and kind of created my own version of it that I'll show in a little bit. So this is footage from the Immocodius channel and his version of it. This is using Abinos, and I'll show you kind of the leveling part of that. And it's, I'm excited to try it out. As you can see, you don't really do any hit damage at all. It just basically comes from the dot. But, you're doing so much dot damage that enemies pretty much just drop quite quickly. I'm excited to try it. I think it's going to be really strong. I just hope that that transition from like, yellows to reds isn't painful. And I hope that, it can farm up gear relatively quickly in early yellows, late whites, because I'm going to be zooming. So yeah, there's kind of how a boss goes. All right. Another reason why I've kind of settled upon this archetype is because of the leveling pathway. The way that I'm going to do it, you normally would level with Helix, Poison Helix, but I think I'm going to level with Poison Concoction because it's just way faster, it's way smoother, and then just kind of get some of the gear that I need to swap to Lightning Strike. So as soon as I get a Benos, basically, I'll swap to Lightning Strike and start doing damage that way. All right, let's move over to the POB here. So this is like the early budget version of the build. It's doing about 3 mil damage. Well, it's doing a little bit more than that. About 4 or 5 mil DPS, all mostly poison DPS. Pretty nice. Actually, let me bring this down. You're not going to have that. It's pretty nice, right? You're utilizing Nightblade and scaling Elusive with Assassin. That's going to give you a bunch of multi, and then you're going to take Perfect Agony to take that multi, transform it into dot multi. It's all very easy. You're on the right side, which is way more value this league because of how hard spell suppression is to get. So you have access to spell suppression here as well as spell suppression here. A good amount of life. You're still going to need all the life you can get on gear, but it's not too bad. And yeah, of course you get the access to the extra curse. Oh, this is the other thing too. You can reach the reservation mastery or the reservation efficiency here, which again is going to have a lot more value this league because there is no mastery. So this is kind of what the tree looks like. Link will be in the description. This is what it's going to look like early. You're going to just get a Benos, and that's going to be your weapon essentially. 6 link, a Benos, an Ungles, and you'll be blasting. You'll be doing pretty good. Just focus on life. And also the additional strike on gloves. This, you probably don't want to swap into Lightning Strike until you have at least 1 additional strike. So you can get it on a oil, which is actually quite expensive and probably not the way you're going to go early. This is an opalescent silver golden, right? So it's quite expensive for that anointment. So it's probably going to be cheaper to just buy a bunch of early Eldritch. You just need the lowest one and to just get strike skills on your gloves and then just craft your gloves. You can, we're doing enough damage where you can swap in Ancestral Call to get that extra bit of clear. That extra bit of clear, like that extra strike, does an immense difference in terms of how the clear feels. You really don't want to be playing this skill without that extra strike, preferably 2 or 3 extra strikes. No damage auras Determination, Grace, Defiance Banner, Precision, Whirling Blades, of course, Plague Bearer to clean up a lot of the trash. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to go. Everyone's running Poacher's Mark with this build. I decided to keep it because you don't really have much sustain, and it's really one of the only ways you can get good sustain. We are not using a claw, right? We're using a dagger, so we don't have access to that good sustain. It's one of the biggest downsides of the build. You'll see in my endgame version, I kind of take care of that a little bit, but sustain is a big problem. Self-casting Despair until we get a Despair on hit ring. That's cringe, but it is what it is. And Withering Step to keep your elusive up. This is very important. This also applies Wither stacks, so you have to have it with this version. It's just completely necessary. Ancestral Protector for the buffs, and then that's also going to apply Wither to just keep the Wither topped up. You can pretty much keep your Wither here at 15. Another thing, when you have elusive, you don't really want to take this to all. You don't want to. You want to put your value in. I usually put it at 180 just because you're not always at 100% elusive. So just put whatever the top elusive is and like scale that down maybe 1/3 just to kind of get a better average of your DPS. You can see without it, do considerably less damage. No other hijinks with the tree. One thing I realized is that daggers are they have pretty good masteries, especially for poison. 8% more damage with hits and ailments against enemies affected by at least 5 poisons. These enemies will be affected by, dozens of poisons. Of course, the elusive one. And then you have this one here. Crits have Culling Strike. So pretty fucking nice mastery there. For the Ascendancy, probably going to go elusive first. This is really important. And then go to the poisons and then take this last. That's probably how that's going to go. Taking a look at the gear. Beanos. It's kind of hard to replace this just because that prolif is really nice and, it's a pretty cheap weapon. So probably going to stick with Beanos for a while. You get a lot of good shit from it. The shield is probably the craziest piece of gear, I would say, in this list. I'm kind of nervous about spell suppression and how that's going to roll. I see everyone doing POBs right now with T1 spell suppression rolls, and I'm a little bit nervous because getting T1 res, T1 life, and T1 spell suppression is pretty difficult to get, especially early. But nonetheless, the way that I have this crafting it is with crafting, essences, life essences, until you pretty much roll spell suppression and then figure out a way to roll elemental ailments. This is kind of a crazy shield for early, but I don't know, maybe you'll be able to find one. I will definitely prefer to have the spell suppression over the avoid ailments, but the avoid ailments is necessary for later in the game. So, yeah. Also, the craft here, armor during soul gain prevention, because we have a lot of Vol stuff going on, we're going to constantly be spamming our Vol. Might even throw in a Vol War Chief as well as a Vol Molten Shell. Soul gain prevention is going to be up for a lot. It's going to be up a while, right? You're going to have soul gain prevention quite a bit, and that's a lot of flat armor, especially for, right side of the tree stuff where you're kind of lacking on armor. You can see here, like, we have some good defense values. Even with our flash turned off, like, it's not bad. That soul gain prevention gives you quite a bit, especially when you're using determination and grace. So soul gain prevention craft, good idea. The helmet, life, resist, spell suppression, of course. The enchant, lightning strike fires 3 additional projectiles. That's definitely important just for the clear. The body armor, using the essence for onslaught to hit life and suppress, basically. Probably a little bit crazy, but nonetheless. All of these Eldritch implicits are just tier 1s, so they're nothing wild. Crafting on avoid ailments. The gloves are also kind of a little bit trolling. You'll probably just end up buying strike skills, target 1 additional nearby enemy, implicit gloves, and then just crafting on those. For these gloves in particular, you're just spamming attack speed essences until you hit something similar to this, and then using the lowest Eldritch, the lesser Eldritches until you get those implicits. Boots, veiled modifier, cannot be chilled. That you can remove for something else once you are ailment immune. This POB, I am ailment immune, so we completely avoid all the ailments, which is nice. but it's just POB. And then avoid ailments and then resistances. So resistances are kind of tough to get. You can see I'm kind of scraping by on resistances. So really just focusing on life and resist, obviously. Ungles is pretty necessary. It gives you all of your crit chance, basically. Your crits aren't doing extra damage, but you still are critting. And that procs this node here. Poisons you inflict with critical strikes deal 25% more damage. Rings, life, resist. You can use the dot essence to craft these rings. Super easy. Vermilion rings, just life. If you can, craft on whatever craft you want. Probably going to craft on non-channeling because you're going to, if you have a Vermilion, you're probably going to take the life quality stuff. So that scales with this. You get -8 instead of -7. And then your belt. I'm not 100% sure what I want to do here. Stygian Vise and then life and resist, basically. I have the Vanguard belt here, which gives you a little bit more EHP. Not 100% sure what I want to do with it. So the belt slot, I'm really not 100% sure what I want to do here. There's a lot of like funky belts that you can kind of choose. And I haven't decided upon which one I want. So I just went with the Stygian with life and resist, obviously. You can even go Vanguard if you want a little extra EHP. Maybe you're lacking on, your defenses. You want to boost that up a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff you can do there. So it's kind of up to you. Again, this is the League Start version. This is kind of like the early day 1, day 2, day 3 version. And it's doing more than enough damage. Does great clear. It's pretty fast. But I'm going to show you why I ultimately landed upon this version over the others. So this is ultimately why I decided upon all right, this is a pretty good League Starter for me. Shitloads of damage. Pretty fucking tanky for an assassin. I'm pretty happy. You have a tree that's not doing a bunch of crazy shit. You're not a bunch of travel nodes. Everything is just kind of hyper focused in this area. And there's just there's a lot of scaling potential for this build, and it's just a super fun little project to kind of build into. These are pretty insane numbers. This is pretty insane gear, but it is obtainable stuff. It's not like completely broken shit. This gear is pretty obtainable. It's gonna be a bit until you get it, but there's no mage blood. There's nothing that's too wild here. Ultimately, the dagger is gonna be pretty crazy to get. The shield might be a little wild, and then maybe the gloves. Maybe the boots. We'll go through that in a second. But yeah, good damage. It's fast. 118% movement speed. That's without the flask on. With the flask, we get a considerable amount, about 164. Full spell suppression capped. We're completely ailment immune. We don't have to worry about ailments at all. That's super nice. Our life leech is not bad. With our flask up, we get about 1100. That's pretty doable. That's not bad, right? It's not Slayer level, but compared to a lot of the other POBs for this build, this is like 4 times as much, basically. Because a lot of the other builds, they only relied on Poacher's Mark. So, I realized you just, sacrifice some damage. We're already damage capped anyway. So sacrifice some damage and get a lot of the quality of life things. Oh, the other thing, right? We have access to this node, one step ahead. So all of those bullshit slows in the game, we don't have to really worry about them. Very, very nice. You could take ES Leech if you wanted to build an ES version. Take that. Just having access to all these trickster nodes. I mean, look how much polymath gives us. Another 3.5 mil DPS. We don't need it, but we could take it if we wanted to. Hey, maybe you really want to value defense. You could take Heartstopper. So every 10 seconds, you basically take half damage. Pretty insane. Maybe that, spell suppression is too hard to get. So we end up taking Spellbreaker. I don't know. Or maybe we just take fucking another assassin node. Who knows, right? The sky's the limit here, but there's a lot of fun things that you can kind of play into. And it's not too crazy. Seeing the build and how Immocodius kind of built it and, the steps that he's taken with his build, it was just like, oh, this is really cool. This is a really thought out, well done version of Lightning Strike that I really want to try out. The gear here, I don't need to cover too much about it, but this is ultimately what makes this build tick. Once you kind of get this claw and all of your elemental damage can turn to poison, you're going to be doing silly amounts of damage. I mean, if we just compare it to a Beano's, it's quite literally double the damage, right? So very nice having a weapon that scales that much. Shield, right? Same kind of thing as the earlier version, but just kind of geared up a little bit more. Avoid ailments, spell suppress, and then get the hunter mod to have reservation efficiency. And that's something that I do that's a little bit different than a lot of the other builds, is that I focus on trying to fit in all of the defensive auras as well as malevolence. So it's going to take a little bit of money to get there, but a couple enlightens, some fine tuning of gear. You take some of these reservation clusters and you can get the malevolence in there and still have plenty of mana left. But, getting the shield is the tough part, I guess. Blizzard Crown, right? Same thing. This is a woke Blizzard Crown, Hunter Redeemer. Nearby enemies with elevated chaos resistance and then elevated mana reservation efficiency skills. Slam that together, reroll life, yada, yada, yada. And then craft on the +2 AoE, get the enchant. Now the Covenant, as you can see, look at that number there, 14 mil. That level 29 added chaos damage is awesome. So this is the early version of the chest here. And then you could also get a chest with maybe attack crit, maybe increased aura effect, additional curse, percentage life, spell suppress. The chest slot is pretty competitive. It's really competitive. So losing a lot of that defense and a lot of those really nice things does hurt. But with this build in particular, that level 29 added chaos damage just gives us so much. It also gives us ES, so we can actually take this node, Ghost Dance, right? So now I don't feel bad taking Ghost Dance because, we have somewhat of an ES pool. I probably still won't take it, but I can. Gloves, this basically the same gloves as last time, except we're upgrading strikes to 2, upgrading the pierce to 2. That's going to take a lot of money. Boots, same thing. These boots I've added the onslaught instead of the chill because we're ailment immune. Our ungles, you're going to take off corruption as the anoint, and we're going to anoint sovereignty. For the rings here, this ring is pretty crazy. It's kind of POB bait, but it's more of theoretical. I think I can drop the life here and just take the mana. We'll see. I also do want the life leech again. Kind of taking that life leech is pretty important. It's ultimately just a despair ring with res and then just reforging as life, basically, to get the life and the life leech, hopefully hitting mana or crafting that mana on. The other ring is the Vermilion ring. This hasn't really changed. Still using the Stygian Vise as well. So, the belt slot, obviously, we're going to put a Mage Blood here once we get it. And that's going to, the Mage Blood just fixes everything. It's going to give us double our defense, maybe even triple our defense. It's going to give us all the res that we need so we can really focus all of the gear on other shit. And yeah, the Mage Blood is obviously the goal here. But for now, we'll just use the Stygian Vises. It's fine. I just haven't decided on a better belt other than just life and resists. So for our clusters, taking damage with hits and ailments cluster, and we're taking all the leech stuff. So we're taking Feed the Fury and Drive the Destruction. I also added Martial Prowess on there, but these are pretty important to get that life leech number, that coveted recovery number. I think 1,000 is pretty good. If you can hit 1,000, your recovery is not bad. A lot of builds don't have that. For our small clusters, we're taking the Malevolence Reservation Efficiency cluster, so we can fit this in there. And then we're also taking Enduring Composure, right? So we can get endurance charges, which is awesome. So it's one of the reasons why we're pretty tanky. The Watcher's Eye, this is, you're not going to be having all 3 of these. You're just basically pick 2, whichever 2 you need, right? Do you need Spell Suppress? You can go with Grace and Precision. Or you can go Grace and Malevolence. If you don't have Malevolence yet, you can go Grace and Precision. You can go Malevolence and Precision. It's really just pick 2, but I think these are the best ones for this build. And then the Forbidden Flames is one step ahead, which I'm super, super excited to play around with, getting this in there. You can see it doesn't really add much damage to our build, but what it's going to do is just quality of life is going to go through the roof. Just not having to worry about 90% of the slows in the game. Oh man, this is such a stacked node. I initially was thinking, why don't I just go Trickster, ES Evasion Trickster, taking this in Polymath, and you do lose a bit of damage. You lose quite a bit of damage, but the quality of life, the defense, the regen. I mean, I was getting, energy shield leech up to, it was crazy. It's the amount that you can get is crazy, but ultimately, I think this is the better version in the Shadow realm. And yeah, I mean, we could even go this version if you wanted to. You can go Harness the Void and get all of your extra non-chaos damage. That's extra chaos damage, giving a shitload of DPS. But we don't need DPS. We're literally capped, right? We can't get any more. So the rest of the build should just be focused on a bunch of defensive stuff and quality of life stuff. So that's the build. That is the build. Link will be in the description. I'm excited to try it out. Hopefully it's not too janky early. It looks pretty strong early, to be honest. Like I know people that have started it. I've seen the videos of people starting it. It looks pretty strong through and through. Starting as Poison Concoction, getting a Beanos, swapping over to Lightning Strike, getting the Strike Gloves, yada yada. That's strong, and then just slowly building your gear out. Every piece of gear is going to make you feel stronger and stronger and stronger. As we can see here, one of the biggest points of damage, the Ungles, of course, is pretty much necessary. Covenant is going to really just boost our damage. A really well-rolled Blizzard Crown with the right mods is going to be really nice. In order of the items that I'm probably going to get first, it's probably going to be the Dagger, and then it's probably going to be the Gloves, then the Crown, then the Shield. Covenant's probably going to be the last piece that I would get. And that's that. And then the Mage Blood. And then once we have the Mage Blood, we beat the game. And then we can make any build we want. All right. So that's the League starter. And yeah, if you have any questions or, if you guys are starting this, let me know down in the comments. And good luck to you. Have fun. Peace, peace.